Outlets are now attacking anyone who asks the health question as a, quote, birther spreading crazy conspiracy theories. Let's take a little walk down memory lane, shall we? Back to 2008 and what some big-name journalists were then saying about then 72-year-old Senator John McCain.
Is McCain simply too old to get elected?
If it's John McCain's health we're talking about, and he's running for the highest office in the land, his health, with limits, becomes the public business.
This is a person who's had five different skin cancers, 4 melanomas, and then we found out today that he had a squamous cell carcinoma as well.
How concerned are doctors that this skin cancer may in fact return?
Joining me now, Dr. Mark Siegel, NYU professor of medicine and Fox News medical correspondent, and he was actually part of a team of medical professionals tapped to answer questions about John McCain's health. Doc, great to see you.
Great to see you, Megyn.
So, I mean, those journalists were right. We had a right to know about John McCain, who wanted to be the commander-in-chief, and we have a right to know about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, do we not?
Yes, we do. And I think what happened in 2008 is we changed the bar. We put it in a different place because the public these days is all about disclosure. It's all about transparency. So we essentially said if somebody's around 70 and they have significant health history, we want to know. His last melanoma had been 8 years before, but 22 journalists, and I was one of them, looked over 1,100 pages that he released to a private viewing and reassured ourselves that he wouldn't have a melanoma coming back soon.
I remember when you did that. There was something about, like, some sun damage on his bottom that you can't unsee that once the image goes in your head.
But I thought for parity's sake after that, we would then get full records released in people that were around 70 or had significant health
but neither candidate has done it. She hasn't done it. He hasn't done it. She's released more than he has. Hillary has more than Trump. He's got some letter from some doctor, Harold Bornstein, who says Trump will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the president. Yes, right. Thank you. And Trump says my records show perfection, according to this guy. Okay, so this is the situation in which we find ourselves. You tell me whether you've seen anything publicly that suggests to you she has got some deeply concerning medical condition.
I don't believe that doctors should speculate. I think when we do that, we undermine our own authority, and in a way, it's against our oath. What I think is if she has a significant history, like a fall in 2012, a question enough so that we would want to see more of her records if she would release them. Similarly, Donald Trump being around 70, not sleeping well at night, and eating a lot of junk food, he readily admits, I want to see his records as well. I think a team of doctors or media people should be able to get private showings of these records, same as we did in 2008. Same as, if you asked an accountant, Megyn, you said to an accountant, how are their taxes? The accountant would say, I can't tell you, look at their taxes, right? Same with health records. We want to actually see the records.
You don't want sweeping conclusions. You want the evidence that form the basis of those conclusions so you can make up your own mind.
Absolutely. I don't see anything to doubt either one of these candidates. I just want to see more information.
Dr. Siegel, great to see you.
By
the way, look what Dr. Siegel brought me back from Russia. He saw I was drinking coffee, and he decided to upgrade it for me.
The best.
Interesting choice. Thank you.
That's the best.
Thank you, Dr. Siegel.
Great to see you.
Joining me now is more Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff under President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor, and Mo Alifi, former Senior Spokesman and Traveling Press Secretary for Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. Good to see you both. Karl, you know, it's interesting to see everybody come out and say, we need this John McCain, we got to get to the bottom of that. But now we've seen so many in the media say, come on. Lay off of it. I agree with when it comes to the fake medical reports that have been out there about her, but we're allowed to ask questions about her health.
Oh, sure. And look, in previous elections, I remember in 2000, we went through this exhaustive process with the New York Times where we had to make available every health record of Governor George W. Bush of Texas. They had to be looked at exhaustively by a fellow who had done this for 20-some-odd years for the Times and examined by other physicians. It wasn't pleasant, but frankly, it was part of the process. And that's been the way in most modern elections. 1996, Bill Clinton stiff-armed the New York Times for months. We knew more about the health records of Bob Dole, a World War II veteran, than we did about the baby boomer Bill Clinton. But I think both candidates ought to accept the fact that that kind of scrutiny, I don't know if the Times is now prepared to do it, but that kind of scrutiny is necessary in the modern campaign.
Mo, do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's totally legit to want to take a look at the health records and background of candidates, and that's totally something that voters rightfully ought to have information on, and it's a legitimate question for that. Having said that, it is not legitimate to be out there spreading false stories about a candidate's health that have no basis in
Okay,
fact
but let me ask you,
reality.
let me stop, because there's some crazy right-wing, like really far right-wing websites that came up that apparently made fake health documents for Hillary Clinton under her real doctor's name. The doctor came out and said those are completely false. They misstated her title. I mean, they're just bogus. But let's take it a step back from that, because you've had people like Rudy Giuliani out there saying she looks sick. Just Google Hillary Clinton and health, and you'll find. Is your view on that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I agree with the doctor you just had on, who said it does undermine the whole process. It undermines the way we look at this whole thing. I mean, the stuff that's coming out of not just far-right websites, the stuff that's coming out of, not just out of Trump surrogates' mouths, but even some of the things that the candidate himself is saying, I think are really unfortunate and do a disservice to this whole conversation.
Questioning her stamina?
Donald Trump questioning her stamina, saying that she is not mentally or physically prepared or has the stamina to do the job. You know, look, Donald Trump, you got a problem with Hillary Clinton. You have an issue with Hillary Clinton. You have plenty of issues to differentiate yourself on. Do it that way.
Carl,
but to manufacture something about her health.
Part of what's going on here, Carl, you tell me, is that there have been questions, in particular after she had that concussion and she had the glasses on for the double vision, and some of the comments that were made back then that raised real questions about what had actually happened to her then.
Yeah. Well, think about that. Absolutely right. She has a concussion on the 13th of December, falls down and has a concussion, but we're not told about it until the 15th of December, 2 days later. We're told on the 25th that, or excuse me, I actually got this written down.
The
on
whiteboard,
the 20th, we're told,
on the health.
Whiteboard. We're told on the 28th. We're told on the 28th of December that she's going to be back to the office next week. On the 30th, she's hospitalized with a blood clot, but we're not told about it until the next day.
2 pages.
She leaves the hospital on January 2nd. On January 7th, they say she is fully recovered, and they have a photo op, but she's not fully recovered. On the 23rd of January, 2013, she shows up at the Benghazi hearing wearing Fresnel prism glasses that help people who've suffered a concussion or traumatic brain injury get their vision right. She appears on 60 Minutes interview with President Obama, again with the glasses. It takes it over 2 months for her to get rid of the glasses. In fact, the next year, her husband, Bill Clinton, says it was terrible. The concussion required 6 months of very serious work to get over. That's what he admitted a year later. So, you know, when people have it, I remember when President Bush ate the pretzel and collapsed, we had to make every record available. We had to provide doctors in extremis to the press. And when she misled the American people, or people on her behalf misled the American people about the seriousness of that concussion, it does create some doubts. Now, I'm separate that from the arguments that Trump makes about her, you know, can she, as she up for the rigors of the presidency? People have made that argument back to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Okay. So that's in politics, but both of these people ought to come clean with all their records.
Mo, would you like to respond to the triple whiteboard?
I didn't hear it all over the sounds of the black helicopters that I think were flying by the window here.
He's coming after you.
What I think I did hear, though, was Karl repeating many of the things he said back in the day that he actually had to walk back because a lot of it wasn't right and wasn't true. And this is what I'm talking about.
This is absolutely true. The president, the Secretary of State, allowed her people to mislead the American people about the seriousness of her concussion.
No. The insinuations that you're making there, the insinuations that Donald Trump making there, there's very little difference between the two.
I'm
facts
not insinuating anything. I'm not insinuating anything.
No, nobody can understand when you talk over each other like this.
I'm not insinuating anything. I am saying her people did not tell the American people the truth about her concussion, and misled the people, delayed providing information, and then her husband admitted that it had taken her 6 months to get back on.
Gotta leave it at that. We appreciate you doing the writing on your whiteboards and something better than Dr. Scratch, so we could actually read it. And
I'll bring mine next time too,
whether
Carl.
the American people are persuaded is up to them to decide. Great to see you both. So still ahead, a possible terror attack in Virginia and the questions it's now raising for the FBI. Have you heard about this? Plus, Kevin Jackson and Andel Brown are here on Donald Trump's attempts to reach the black community. And then big news